I think it's like part of the psychology of diabetes. When you get diagnosed, you hear about the things you can no longer do. And you mainly hear about the restrictions and how much more difficult your life is going to be. And I think that technology has changed that. So our lives have become more normal now. I'm competitive during a race. That's not really why I do it, because doing an Ironman, for instance, I was never going to finish first. I was just competing against myself, trying to manage my diabetes, trying to keep my sugars in check, and trying to make it till the finish line, and just trying to beat myself. When my wife was pregnant, I was a bit overweight. My health was not so good. If you have type 1 diabetes, you have to go to the ophthalmologist. And they told me, you have the first signs of retinopathies. And I was like, okay, so what does that mean? If you don't manage your diabetes better, in 10 years it may be.
Hi everyone, welcome to TypeCast Life Between the Lines, a diabetes podcast that goes beyond the target glucose. I'm your host, Natalie Balmain, winner of Channel 4's Make Me Prime Minister, Omnipod Ambassador, and General Do-Gooder of Diabetes. Juggling the ups and downs of diabetes can be challenging, so I'm here to connect you to some real people with real stories who all have one thing in common: type 1 diabetes. We'll be talking to some amazing guests over the course of this series, sharing laughs, tears, insights, and inspirational stories. So whether you're a seasoned pro or newly diagnosed, I hope you enjoy the podcast. If you do, you can make sure to watch, download, listen, and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, or your favorite podcast app. I hope you enjoy the show. Typecast the podcast features real stories from real people living with diabetes. But of course, none of this should be taken as medical advice. Always seek advice from your diabetes specialist team before making any changes. I'm your host, Natalie Balmain, and I am really excited to introduce today's guest to you, who has come to chat to us all the way from Belgium. David is a father of two, business owner, wine enthusiast, but has some incredible sporting achievements under his belt as well. And what's so interesting about his story is we've spoken to a lot of athletes who were athletes, became diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and had to adjust so they could continue playing their sports. But what if you decided to take up sports after diagnosis? That's exactly what David did, and we're going to find out a bit more. Hi, David.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, it's so lovely to have you. And there are so many things that I want to chat to you about. But first of all, let's take it right back to the beginning. How old were you when you were diagnosed?
I was 13. That was a difficult time, I would say. I can remember life without diabetes, not so well, but I can remember it. And then, it was an Easter celebration we had at my grandparents' place, and I had been feeling not so well for over a week, I think. And we were there, and, my father, all of a sudden, he noticed that there were an awful lot of empty soda cans, on my side of the table. And he just looked at it and said, "Did you drink all this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did." And they were looking at me like, how is that possible? Yeah. And then there were 2 more empty bottles of water as well. And then they were like, okay, something is wrong here.
The classic thirst.
Yes, the thirst. And then, they took me to the doctor's office and basically straight to the hospital for 10 days. So, that was quite a shock back then.
So 13 is a difficult enough age for anybody, isn't it?
True.
Growing pains, but then to add into, I guess, figuring out who you are again. Is that how it felt?
Yeah, it was a complete reset, I would say, because, we were a family of 4 kids, so 2 brothers and a sister, and we used to eat a lot of carbs. We baked our own bread. We just loved our food. And all of a sudden, I went to the hospital and they gave me this list of, you can have so many grams of fries, or you can have so many grams of potatoes, so many grams of rice, and you really had to start weighing all of your food, and you had to really take care. And it was a total change, and for me it was very difficult, especially since my brothers and my sister, they didn't have diabetes, so they just kept on going, and I had to change. So that was difficult.
And at that point, obviously, no such thing as CGM or anything like that to assist you. So like many of us, how many years were you on multiple daily injections and finger pricking?
Oh, I was on MDI for, I think, 22 years.
Wow.
Yes, for a long time. And finger pricking back then, yes. It was actually 2 injections a day, so you had to know in the morning what you were going to have for dinner, basically. There was not much flexibility at all. It was really different from now. I would say, there's been a very positive change over the years.
Yes.
Yes.
So you say then you were on 2 injections a day. So were you on mixed insulin for most of that time?
At least for the first 5 or 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time to be on a very regimented regime.
Yes. And of course, once I went to university, I was a student, and I moved out of the house. I was living in the city. I got more independence, and I started to rebel a little bit, against that regime, that strictness, rigidity. So I was like, okay, I can be like the others, right? So let's go out and party, and with the other students, and enjoy ourselves, live our lives. That works. But diabetes, you can't just switch it off. It's something that you always carry with you. You can't just say, oh, I'm not a diabetic anymore now for this party, and then tomorrow I'll have diabetes again. No, it doesn't work like that. So you always have to be mindful.
Did you have any scary incidents during that time while you're partying and kind of rebelling? And
I did have a coma at some point. Yes, so I went to sleep, and I didn't wake up till 4 p.m.
Wow.
in the afternoon on the floor.
Oh.
So it's diabetes can be nasty.
Yeah, suddenly it just you can, like you say, you kind of go, oh, do you know what, I'm going to be normal for a bit and I'm going to go out and do this, and then diabetes sort of taps you on the shoulder and goes,
indeed. No escape. No, but that's when it started to dawn upon me that you can deal with diabetes, but you have to be conscious. You have to be aware of it all the time. It's not something you can switch off. So you have it. You better learn how to deal with it, how to cope with it. And that's when it started to dawn upon me. But it's only later, I would say, when my wife was pregnant with our first daughter, that I really started making changes in my life. Because, as I said, as you introduced me, I'm a wine enthusiast, right? I like good wine. I like good food.
Yeah.
But you always have to be. If you have diabetes, you can't just do whatever you want with food and drinks and everything. So when my wife was pregnant, I just started to think. I was a bit overweight. I didn't feel so good about myself. My health was not so good because type 1, if you have type 1 diabetes, you have to go to the ophthalmologist quite often, right? So I went there, and they told me, you have the first signs of retinopathy, so damage to the retina. And I was like, okay, so what does that mean? And she said, well, if you don't manage your diabetes better, it's possible that, in 10 years you may be blind. So you better watch out. And I took that advice to heart. I started thinking, because, when you're about to become a father, you start thinking about the future,
Of course, yeah.
and you think, okay, so I'm gonna have this baby, and I want to see, this baby. I want to see her children maybe later,
Yeah.
and you start thinking, I want to be healthy for them because I want to be there. I want to live a healthy life.
So
And
you have your daughters to credit, really, for you turning
yeah,
it around.
yes, I do think that. Yes, it was a big motivator for me to make a positive change. And yeah, that's when I said, I'm just going to buy myself a road bike, and I'm going to go cycling 3 times a week. That's what I
And
said.
that's what I find so incredible about you, because we will talk about the incredible journey you've had with sports. You are a triathlete now, and it's just amazing. But what I love about it is that, unlike so many people I've spoken to, you picked this up many years after being diagnosed with type 1 and after a long period of disengagement. So that's a real, that's a challenge, because you're starting from scratch, with planning things like fueling yourself, having, hypo treatments, how far you can push exercise. So how did you start? You bought the road bike, and what happened?
Well, I started cycling 3 times a week, and I started enjoying it.
Love
And when you start out with a new sport, you get better
Yeah.
very quickly, and it motivates you to go even further. So yeah, I started cycling more, and then one of my old friends, he saw that I started cycling, and he used to be an athlete as a child, and he was like, oh, so you started doing sports. I also would like to make that change in my life. So, but I don't like cycling. So can we go for a run together, maybe? And he was also a swimmer. So can we go for a swim? And I was like, okay, let's try that. And then just one thing led to another. It was not that I had planned from the start to do big triathlons, but one thing led to another, and I just went further and further into that. And yeah, and then we were like, okay, so we're doing these 3 sports now. We're doing running, we're doing cycling, we're doing swimming. So let's do something crazy. Let's just register for a triathlon.
And when did you register for your first triathlon?
It was 6 months after I started, exercising.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's an incredible achievement.
So yeah, but we just did that for fun, basically, just to keep us motivated, because we knew, when you set a goal, you kind of, you think, okay, I need to train for this, because otherwise I'll just die. So when I'm there, so yeah, and then okay, the day came of that big triathlon, and and after that I did my second one, and just that was a short distance triathlon, the first one, and then I registered for a half triathlon, and then I did a whole Ironman at some point.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know what an Ironman
Yeah.
involves, just explain that a little bit.
Well, it's about 4 kilometers of open water swimming, followed by 180 kilometers, so about 100 miles of cycling.
Wow.
And then a whole marathon after that.
One after the other.
Yes.
I mean, that's just insane. How did you feel doing that? Were you?
During, well, I it was hard. It was really hard. But I remember just the last mile, it was, you know that you're going to finish and you're going to make it. And it was, it's euphoria. You just don't feel the pain anymore. You just, just so happy. And the great thing was that, when I ran up to the finish line, my daughter was there. She was then 3 years old. And she ran up to me, and I just held her hand and crossed the finish line together with her. Yes, I have a very nice picture of that.
Oh, that is so beautiful.
I will. Yeah, that's like one of the moments I will always remember. That was one of the best moments in my life. Yeah.
And I guess incredibly more poignant because, like we mentioned earlier, they were sort of the catalyst for you doing all of this. Your daughter.
Did feel like it was full circle. You know, a little bit like that. Yes. And then, after that, I just set a new goal because I'm quite a goal-oriented person.
Did you discover a sort of competitive side of yourself, perhaps, that you didn't know was lurking?
I do. Yeah, I am competitive during a race, but that's not really why I do it. Because doing an Ironman, for instance, I was never going to finish first. So I was just fighting myself. I was just competing against myself, trying to manage my diabetes, trying to keep my sugars in check, trying to keep myself in check, trying to make it till the finish line, and just trying to beat myself. And that's how I look at exercising. Basically, I'm always trying to beat myself. I'm just trying to do better than the last time, and I think that's the way I look at it. But after that, I was like, okay, I'm going to do something else maybe, because I did the Ironman, and then I got into cycling, into gravel cycling. Actually, it's off-road, on-road. It's it's something that I really enjoyed, cycling in the forest, and just there are no cars. It's quiet, and I love it. So I started getting to that, and I set a goal. I wanted to qualify for the World Championships, but that I never thought I would actually get there, because I just sometimes you set a goal just to
just to see,
just to motivate you to get out there. And
but you did qualify.
Yeah, this year I'd registered for 4 or 5 qualifier races, and the first one it magically worked. It all worked out, because to do something like that, everything has to go right on the day. Your diabetes has to go right, because sometimes if you're too high, too low, you will not make it. So that was, and also physically I had to feel well, the weather had to be good.
All these factors.
Yes, and then diabetes on top. So that's basically it. But it all went right, and I was so happy I qualified. I didn't even know, when I arrived, nobody, because it was in Italy, and it was, not the most professional organization, I would say, because I arrived and nobody knew, did you qualify or not? What was your ranking? Because it was a very long race, and so many people, there was a long time between finishers. So and then only an hour later, I actually thought, no, I haven't qualified. So I was like, I actually, the last hour of the race, I was really almost depressed, because I thought that I was not going to qualify and I was not good enough. Wow. And you start talking to yourself. If you're out there for 5 hours cycling, and most of it was alone, then you start talking to yourself, and you can go to a pretty dark place. At some point, you're like telling yourself, you're not good enough, you're not going to make it, you have diabetes, it's not going to work. I mean, all of these other athletes, they don't have diabetes, they're going to be better than you. And then I arrived, I was like a bit down, but then a guy came up to me and said, hey, so I was second, and I think you were not far behind me. And I said, no way, that's not possible. I can't be the third. That's impossible. I'm not the third of the race. No way. So I didn't even check, because I didn't believe him. But then I think an hour after, I've taken a shower and everything, and I said, okay, you know what, I'm going to check it anyway.
Yeah.
And so I finished third, and I was on the podium. So I had to go there.
That is absolutely incredible.
Yes.
Congratulations. So what's next?
Well, the World Championships in October.
Wow.
Yeah, I have to be there. And
where are they being held?
In Belgium, in my country.
Fantastic. Well, that's nice for you.
Yeah, that's why I had set that goal, because it's like coming home, right? It's really.
I mean, that's incredible, and good luck for October.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So obviously you're going to be hard in your training at the moment, and we've talked about where you've come from, the long time that you spent on multiple daily injections. the point at which you started to engage. And then obviously that engagement grows, doesn't it? And then you want to fine tune your management. And what I think is so interesting about you is you were actually the first person in Belgium to go onto Omnipod.
Yes, that's true.
And how did that come about? Because I think, am I right in saying you were kind of asking for it before it even launched in Belgium?
Yes, because, I was doing triathlon, and it's not that easy to manage for a person with diabetes, because you have to swim first, you have to get out of the water. Then I had to finger prick, and then later there was CGM, but okay. And you would have to take your insulin with you. And if you're on the bike and you need insulin, I can tell you, injecting insulin on the bike, you have to be an acrobat to do it. It's not safe.
No, I wouldn't recommend it.
No. So yeah, well, I actually did that a few times during triathlon. Yes, I did that. I had to do it in my leg, and the needle bent, and then it's not.
I mean, you're cycling.
Yes.
Your legs are moving, so you're trying to hit a moving target.
Yes.
That's insane. That's insane. So
I can't
was
imagine.
that really what made you think, okay, I need a pump? And then obviously, like you were saying, there's a swimming element. So a tubed pump, that's the computer bit, that's going to have to come off and come back on. And
well, I never thought I never saw myself as a pump person, because a pump had been suggested to me before by my diabetes team, but I'd been like, okay, I don't want to be a robot. I don't want to have a big device on me all the time, especially since I'm doing a lot of sports. I'm exercising all the time. I'm sweating. I thought it would be inconvenient. But then I read about some other athletes in the US. They were using the Omnipod, a tubeless pump, and I hadn't heard of it before. And I just started looking into it. And so, I contacted Insulet at some point and asked them, are you coming to Belgium? Because I would really like to try that pump. And and then it came to Belgium, and my diabetes team invited me and said, you can be the first person to have this pump.
That's quite incredible. And did that sort of, I don't know if you even know this, do you feel that maybe, obviously, it's launching in Belgium, and so there are probably, other people who are going to be contacted by their diabetes team, but do you feel like that was a bit of you kind of influenced people a bit there? Were you a bit of a diabetes influencer?
Well, I was honored. Because actually I was there with the diabetes team, and all of the nurses were sitting there, and they were actually watching my every move. I was putting on my first pod, and they were excited too, because it was the first time they saw it. Yeah. So that was amazing. And then it really changed my diabetes management, I would say. It's made it much easier, especially during exercise, to make adjustments on the go. Mm-hmm. It just helps me to tailor, I would say, the insulin delivery to my body's requirements, and that really helped me improve my diabetes management. So I'm really happy. And the thing is, that's why I love the tubeless pump. Is I don't feel. I thought I was not a pump person. I didn't want this big device, but I don't feel it's like a big device. I don't feel I have it on. It's on my arm, but I'm not thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I had a very similar reaction, because I was offered a pump prior to going on Omnipod, and at the time I didn't know about Omnipod, so they were all tubed pumps to me. And there is something about that psychology. If you are kind of feeling averse to wanting to have a medical device on you, the tubes just make it so much more medical, don't you think? It just seems like, those ideas of somebody in a hospital bed and all these tubes coming out of them. That's how it appeared to me.
Yes.
Certainly.
Yes, it's not even only medical. I would say it's also being tubed. I mean, the tube can feel a little bit like a chain, or something that's restricting you, that's holding you back. So I was, yeah, I was really, I didn't think I was a pump person, but then I became a pump person, a tubeless pump person. But not going, I mean, going for a tube pump was never an option for me. I would never have, uh, yeah, I would never have taken a pump if it was a tubed one. So yeah, that's something, the flexibility, the freedom that comes with it. That was very important to me.
Yeah. I vividly remember being in my consultant appointment where, they'd offered me pumps and I'd always said no. And I remember my consultant going, well, what about Omnipod? It's tubeless. And I went, oh, really? And then I started to look at it. And actually, I was going to ATTD in Vienna not long after that. And my consultant he was doing the talk, actually, at the Omnipod talk there. And I managed to get a demo pod. And I tried the demo pod on, and I just straight away, rather than feeling like, how do I feel about this? I was like, oh, I'm going to snap a picture with my pod on.
Yeah, and just to give you an idea what it means in triathlon, for instance, you have to swim first. So I used to have to get out of the water, get my injections, check my sugar, wait till the connection is reestablished.
Yeah.
And then, it would take me time in transition, a lot of time. And now I don't have to worry. In consultation, let's say with my diabetes team, I can now just decide on a basal schedule for the day, and I set it. We set it up, and basically I don't have to worry anymore. Okay, I can still make adjustments on the go, but I feel more. Yeah, I can focus on doing this sports and being good at triathlon, and not not think about my diabetes management all the time, because that used to be something that held me back at times, because sometimes obviously it doesn't always go right, and if you have a hypo on during a race, your race is over. So it's very important to be on top of your diabetes management when you're racing.
And for other reasons too. We've talked a lot about your sports and your sporting achievements, and obviously it's a huge part of helping with that. But we also talked about how you like your food and your wine. So come on, tell us, has it helped you to enjoy your food and your wine a bit more as well?
Yes. I think so.
That's what I want to know.
I think it's more about, I feel ready to handle all types of situations now. I used to be a bit afraid of eating pizza, for instance, or I would not know how to bolus for it. But now I just know, I can adjust to it. You have CGM, of course, that helps. You can always check your sugar, so you know what the trend is, and then you have Omnipod, so you can basically, get more insulin if you need it, or tone down your insulin a little bit. So that makes it much more. That gives me so much more flexibility, I would say, to also with food. So I'm not afraid of going to restaurants anymore. I used to have this anxiety a little bit, Always I would think, okay, so I'm going to a restaurant tonight, so my night will be terrible because my sugars will be high all night, or I will get a low later. So, yeah.
And those are the little everyday things that I think sometimes get forgotten by, the people around us who don't live with type 1. Is those anxieties, those little fears about, oh, can I do this? Or I'm going to do this because it's the social situation and I want to be there with my family or friends, but I feel really worried about what's coming after. All of those little things. So it's...
Yeah, I think it's like part of the psychology of diabetes, I would say. When you get diagnosed, you hear about the things you can no longer do, and you mainly hear about the restrictions and how much more difficult your life is going to be. And it puts you down a little bit. You feel a little bit different than other people, and you feel that your life will be, not the same, not the same as not normal, And I think that technology has changed that. So our lives have become more normal now, I would say.
Yeah.
I would say our diabetes management you can set up our diabetes management in such a way that we can live a normal life. And that's what I really appreciate about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for this chat, David, because like I said at the beginning, it's so inspiring to talk to somebody who, you know, we talk to a lot of athletes, but to talk to somebody who was diagnosed first, disengaged first, and to then take up sports afterwards, I think it just really proves to everybody who's going to be watching who lives with type 1 that really anything is possible. You know, there's nothing has to stop us from achieving anything. Go from no sporting to diabetes to world championships. I don't think you could get a more inspiring journey than that. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I'm not going to let you go because I'm going to just take a quick break, if that's okay. And we're going to get you back for part 2.
Sure.
All right, guys, join us again after the break for another bit of chat with David, looking at the more light-hearted side of life with type 1. But we're just going to hear a short message from our sponsor. As many of you know, I've lived with type 1 diabetes for over 16 years now, and it certainly comes with its challenges. Whether that's the sleepless nights, the constant glucose checking, knowing what you want to eat so you can bolus in good time, or any of the 40 or so odd factors that affect our glucose levels. After living on multiple daily injections for over 10 years, I knew I needed something different. But I had a wish list. I wanted something that was going to help me with my diabetes management, but without imposing on my life too much. Then in 2018, I met Omnipod. An insulin pump, but different. It's a pump without tubes. Omnipod lets me live my life without multiple daily injections or the worry of my clumsy self pulling my tubing out. Omnipod helps me live my life my way without compromising my diabetes management or my quality of life. If you'd like to try a demo pod, you can order your own pod experience kit from omnipod.com/typecast and try it out for yourself. The link is in the description. Now, back to Typecast. Hi everyone, we are back with David and we are going to talk about some of the real stuff now, because let's be honest, okay, the first bits of chats, we're always trying to inspire, we're always talking about what's possible, but life isn't an influencer highlight reel, is it? And things go wrong. And I know that you have certainly had some experiences where things haven't gone exactly to plan.
No, things go wrong, especially with diabetes. And, you know, I was talking about how I got into sports and how it was all a positive flow. But actually, my first race was a little bit different. So, as I said, I'd registered for this first triathlon. I was enthusiastic. But then, you know, the day came and we had to be there. And I don't know if you know how a triathlon works, but it starts with open water swimming. And what open water swimming is, it's like basically 400 people jump in wetsuits. They jump into the water together, and then something starts that they call the washing machine. So,
of course, 'cause
yes, everybody at the same time, they start swimming, and your body just goes into panic at that point, especially because it was the first time. I never experienced that. It was the first time. And, you know, I had done a lot of training in my diabetes management, planned out everything. I knew about it. I knew what was going to happen. My sugars would go down. I would have to eat sugar, quite a lot of it. But that didn't happen. So I was in this race, got this panic attack in the water.
It's the adrenaline, the cortisol.
Yes, the stress. Yeah, your body just, I didn't know that my body would react that way. So, then I came out of the water. I did a finger prick back then, and my sugar was very high, and I had to get on the bike then, and I did not have insulin in transition. So
because you thought you wouldn't need it.
No, of course.
You thought your blood.
In training, I was like, it was the opposite. I had a sugary drink on my bike, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna drink more sugar. And then the bike ride started, and I was like, okay, it's gonna go down. No worries. I will be fine for the run. It will be lower. And then just got off the bike and did another finger prick, and it was even higher. So it was really I've never had so high sugars at that point. So it was, and then I had to start the run. So I started the run, but when as many type 1s will know, you dehydrate when you're
when your blood sugars are high.
Blood sugars are very high. And yeah, your muscles just start cramping up. And yeah, so that was the worst run in my life. It was hurting so much, but I wouldn't give up. I would just
Wow.
continue
You finished.
going. Yes.
Wow.
I finished, but then I just crashed onto a bed there that the Red Cross people,
Oh my God.
the first aid station. I just crashed there, and I said, I need insulin. And they were like, we don't have insulin. So they were also panicked, and my friend went to get my insulin from the car, and it was, and I was just lying there and thinking, maybe this is not my thing. Maybe if you have type 1 diabetes, you can't do this. But then, immediately, second voice came into my head and said, why did this happen? You just need to find out what went wrong and improve it for the next time. You just need to make a change. And that's how I learned something, about stress and sugars. So after that, I knew that, and I could take that experience to the next race and just go on that way. So I think it's, sometimes you have to crash.
Well, yeah.
Badly to learn something about your body, about diabetes. And
I remember having a revolutionary moment with cortisol where I suddenly realized, and actually for me, it didn't happen until I got CGM. And I was able to prove that I was like, there was all these conversations with my healthcare team, and maybe you're not doing this right. And I was like, I'm sure I am doing this right. And actually, when I got CGM, we realized I could go, get up in the morning, not eat anything, go to work, and go from 7 to 17. And the only thing that was happening was that I was stressed and on my way to work, it is a revolution. And I'm sure there's probably people listening to the show who may not, in their journey yet, have come across the cortisol response. So
diabetes management is not only carbs and insulin. There are so many factors that can influence your blood sugars. And sometimes you don't know which factors may be influencing or changing your sugars at that point. So it's not that easy.
Yeah.
But you as a type 1 diabetic, you do learn a lot about your body. You have to get to know your body very, very well. And that really, I think that also helps you in life to know more about your body.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely. But do you know what? I'm still blown away by the fact that you finished, because like you, one of the first things that happens to me when I'm high is I feel like my legs are made of lead.
Yes.
So the fact that you ran with lead legs is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and I don't know if maybe I'm biased, because I've met a lot of other people living with type 1 diabetes, and I always think, they're tough. So usually I think it's maybe because, we all went through this trauma of the diagnosis, and we had to learn how to deal with diabetes and how to cope with it. And maybe it makes us stronger in the head.
I absolutely.
Even, some people would say stubborn and foolish.
I always think one of the symptoms of type 1 is stoicism.
Yes.
That's it. It just happens. We life gets tough and we seem to get tougher. And I think that's something that, everybody should feel proud of, pat themselves on the back for, whether they're competing in world championships or actually just making it through the day living with type 1. I think, it's something we all need to kind of give ourselves a bit more of a, well done, we did that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
I never feel proud about that, because for me it's natural, it's part of me. Diabetes it's my day-to-day life. But if you start thinking about that, all the little decisions you have to make on a normal day, and that's on top of all the rest. So it's not like it's a full-time job, but you have to do it on top of your other full-time job. So it's the little decisions you have to make all the time. And if you start thinking about, if you start reflecting and listing them, it's, you're like, okay, maybe I should be more proud.
Well, on that note, talking about decisions, I'm very sorry, but I'm going to give you a few more decisions if that's okay, because it's time for our quickfire questions round. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay. First up, Pump or MDI?
Pump.
I think that's a pretty easy one, isn't it? That's pretty easy. Okay. CGM or finger pricks?
Definitely CGM.
I mean, yeah, nobody likes to prick their fingers, do they?
No.
I had a really horrible incident once where it was summer, you know, when you prick your fingers and they don't stop bleeding because your hands are so warm.
Oh.
And I had pricked my finger, thought I'd got all of the blood off, and I was chatting to somebody, and I must have touched my face or moved a hair, and this person's looking at me like, and it wasn't until after the conversation and I walk away that I realised I've got blood on my face because I've just gone like this.
Yeah, and you know, your fingers, after a lot of finger pricks, your fingers, they don't look so good.
No.
So
No.
I'm happy we're past that.
Yeah, soft fingers again.
Yes, soft fingers.
Okay. Phone or text? Are you a caller or a texter?
Text.
You're a texter. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a language person. I like, you know, I would, yeah, I'd rather write somebody a message than, I'm better in writing, I would say, than in speaking.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Insta or TikTok?
Insta. Too old for TikTok. Sorry.
Yeah, I just kind of don't get it a little bit. Why am I seeing videos of people that I don't follow? But anyway, okay. Some people like it. All right, high or low? I mean, neither are nice, but if you had to pick.
I think high, because if I'm a little high, I can still race. If I'm low, it's over.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. All right, juice or sweets?
Sweets.
Oh, you're a sweets man.
Yes.
See, I'm a juice girl. Why sweets? Is it just they're easier to carry around, I suppose? That's
Yeah, sometimes on the bike, I have a pack of sweets in my... Yeah,
yeah, it's harder
my
to carry
jersey.
juice around.
Yeah, and it also reminds me of, you know, the time before diabetes. I think a little bit. I used to like sweets a lot.
Yeah, I mean, no, well, a lot of people are like, when I have a hypo, I'm like, yay, sweets.
Yes. Well, also sports, very good for that, you know, because you can actually have a sweet now and then, no problem.
Yeah.
So
Good. Okay. All right. Rage bolus or wait patiently?
yeah, guilty. Come on, insulin, start working.
I think we're all guilty of rage
Sure,
bolusing, definitely, at time to time.
Yes.
I think it's very hard, isn't it? Because when you're high, it can feel so awful. And obviously, you know, lows, you can bring them up a bit quicker. Sometimes the high can, you know, it's a bit stubborn, and that time waiting for it to come down can feel like an eternity.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, yeah, it goes down like crashes down, and you're like, oh no, what did I do?
Okay, fashion question: Crocs or not?
I'd rather go barefoot, I think.
I am 100% with you on that one. I don't get them whatsoever. Yeah, not for me. All right, last one. HbA1c or time in range?
Definitely time in range. Yeah, I'm happy that they changed the metrics, the performance metrics of diabetes a little bit. Because, yeah, it was always stressful to just wait for that number to come out after the blood tests.
I think that is a big part of it as well, though, because time in range obviously comes from CGM, and it means that we have access to that data on a daily basis.
Yes.
HbA1c was like a shot in the dark. You did not know what was coming after that blood test, and you were there going,
yeah,
please be good. Please be good.
Yeah, it was a bit of a gamble or something.
The worst exam ever.
You would just go there and you would be like, it's going to be good. It's not going to be good. I have no idea. But now you have quite a good picture of, you know, what it's going to be like. So you can check it, as you said. You can follow up on it, and you can also act upon it. You know, you can work with that data. That's a big change from before. Before it all you had to go to the hospital to get anything done or to change anything. And now, you know, you can see it. You can follow it up on your own, and you can see, okay, maybe I shouldn't be eating that late night pizza because every time at night my sugars tend to go wrong. Yeah. So yeah, you can manage your diabetes better that way.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much. And before I let you go, David, I always like to finish these podcasts on a positive note. So do you have a sort of favourite piece of advice, or what advice would you give to somebody who was newly diagnosed, knowing everything you know now?
Well, I think diagnosis is always a stressful time, and it's not nice to hear that, and it can seem that your life will never be the same again, and you will not be able to do things that you had thought or you had wanted to do in your life. So my advice would be, I would say to them, you know, people living with diabetes can still do great things and achieve their goals and make their dreams come true. But they need to have motivation. They need to have the right support from the healthcare team, and technology is very important. So these three things, I think, if you have them as a type 1, you can do great things in life, and you can make your dreams come true.
And I think that is just absolutely incredible advice, and something that you really embody as well. In fact, you could go as far as to say you can dare to dream new dreams after diagnosis and achieve them. So
yeah, life doesn't stop with diagnosis. No.
Thank you so much, David. I know people are going to have really appreciated listening to your story today. And if they're interested in following you, where can they find you on social media?
Well, I'm on Instagram, hashtag neverbackdown.be. So I post there about my sports life and what I do. So yeah, they can follow me there. And I also have a blog. It's also at neverbackdown.be, a diabetes blog. It's in Dutch, but you can use a translator.
Okay. Well, we will definitely share those handles for you in the description below as well. And I really hope you've enjoyed listening to David's story today. If you have, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more content. And of course, if you would like to appear on an episode of TypeCast, you can email us at typecast@insulet.com with your name, age, location, and what you would like to talk to us about. And of course, if you just want to share some silly stories with us, do get in touch on our socials. We may even read some of them out. Until next time, guys, keep doing what you're doing. You're amazing.